Algebra 1, 5.2. We solved inequalities by adding and subtracting yesterday, which, not too bad. Usually one or two steps, because there's not much you can do by just adding and subtracting. Sometimes a little bit of gathering of like terms. Today, we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing. So now we're going to start kicking it up and basically having those multi-step inequalities. Just like before we had multi-step equations. Today we are going to focus more on just doing one step at a time, but there's always that option that things are going to start to ramp up. Okay? So, I can see that this looks a little small on the screen, but we're talking about multiplying and dividing. So I made this a little bit larger so we can read this. I will move it so you can see stuff on the bottom as well. But there are two different things that are going to be going on here, and one of them is the fact that if you have an inequality here of A is greater than B, then it's no different. If I multiply both sides of an equation, it doesn't change it. Now, if we multiply both sides of an inequality, it won't change it as well. So as you can see that AC is greater than BC. So if two people are in the room, one person has more money than the other. If you double each of those people's money, the person with more money still has more money. Right? Just like yesterday, if we gave everybody $5, nobody's money changed. Everybody who is greater than somebody else is still greater than them. Okay? So we got a couple examples with just numbers, like 6 is greater than 3.5. Yeah. Multiply both sides by 2, 12 is definitely bigger than 7. So we are keeping things true. The same thing happens if you have a less than symbol. Of course, way in the bottom, it does talk about the fact that this holds true for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. But those, I think, are pretty simple. Not a big deal. The second case, though, is that if both sides of an inequality, that is true, are multiplied by a negative number, now something happens. The direction of the inequality sign is reversed to make the resulting inequality true. So if you are going to multiply by a negative number, so in this case, you still have A is greater than B, but now they're saying that you have a negative C value that you're multiplying both sides. In this case, A times C is now less than B times C. And vice versa, when A is less than B, if you multiply it by a negative value C, it flips the sign to say greater than. Why does that work? It works because 7 is greater than 4.5. But if I multiply it by negative 3 to both sides, I get negative 21 and negative 13.5. Which one's bigger now? Negative 21 or negative 13.5?
Negative 13.
Yeah. So negative numbers, guys, are those funny things that the bigger the number is with a negative in front, the smaller it actually is. So that's why we need to switch or flip the sign. Same thing happens with the less than symbol. Okay? So back to this. I have to say an important takeaway down on the bottom there. If you blank by a negative number, you need to blank the inequality symbol. What do we fill that in? First one? If you multiply by a negative number, Max? Reverse. Sometimes I'll even say flip. To reverse or flip the inequality symbol. So instead of saying greater than or equal to, it now becomes less than or equal to. Not that big of a deal, right? The biggest thing is not to forget to do that. So, can we solve these? 1/5 m is greater than or equal to negative 3. What do I do both sides? Multiply by 5. So if I multiply both sides by 5, the 5 and 1/5 will cancel, leaving you with m. Awesome. This becomes -3 times 5, which is -15. Do I have to flip the sign? Should that be less than or equal to? It's got a negative right here. But I did not multiply by a negative, so no, I will not change it. It keeps the same. So now m is greater than or equal to -15. Guys, it's always a good habit to check an answer, even if you do it in your mind. Give me a really nice simple number that satisfies
4.
m greater than or equal to -15. 4 definitely works. What's maybe even a better one?
0.
0. Because 0 just makes things go away. So the question is, if 0 makes this true, 0 should also make this true, right? What is 1/5 of 0? Still 0. Is 0 greater than or equal to -3? Yes. So therefore, we did things right. We're happy. Now, part B. -n/3 is less than or equal to 8. What are we thinking here? I want to get rid of the 3 on the bottom, so I would multiply both sides by 3. But I also want to get rid of that negative. Yeah, so we're going to multiply by a -3. Multiply by a -3. Well, -3 times a -1/3, that's what this is, right? -1/3. They cancel, leaving you with n. What's 8 times -3? -24. Do I keep the less than symbol? Or do I flip it? Reverse it? What do we do?
What'd you ask? Sorry.
We got to flip the sign.
Okay.
So now n is greater than or equal to -24. Because I multiplied by a negative number.
0 would work.
Okay, 0 definitely works here. I think everybody should agree with that. Does 0 divided by -3 is what?
0.
Is 0 less than 8?
Yes.
Yes. Boom, we're good to go. Right? Any questions, guys? So, of course, then I could answer or give you a problem in that case. Here's a problem in real life, or something we can try to tie real life into this. It says Mount Kinabalu in Malaysia has the greatest concentration of wild orchids on Earth. It contains more than 750 species, or about 1/4 of all of the orchids species, thank you, in Malaysia itself. How many orchid species are there in Malaysia? Now this one's kind of interesting because it's saying how many are there, but you're not given a firm number, are you?
No, it's just greater than or equal to 750.
Because it says right here, it says more than 750. So therefore, Malaysia, maybe we'll call it M, right? It contains more than 750. But it's interesting. How do I set this up? I'll use M for the number of orchids. M equals number of orchids. What's my equation going to be? contains more than 750 species, or about 1/4 of all of Malaysia. Oh, I say, wait, the mountain, right? Actually, the mountain is of Malaysia. Interesting. So we talked about, or said, that 750, which is the least amount of orchids, right? That this Malaysia, or the mountain, has compared to Malaysia. So Malaysia has the mountain has 1/4 of Malaysia. So this would be considered, represents the mountain, 1/4 of Malaysia itself. And it has to have more orchids than 750 because it says it contains more than 750. So, how can I solve this for how many are in Malaysia? I'll take the box off. There we go. So, how many are there? What do? Multiply both sides by 4. The 4 and the 1/4 will cancel. So m is greater than or equal to? Let's take the 0. Take the 0 away. What's 4 times 75? 4 times 75. What's 2 times 75?
2 times 75.
150. Times that by 2.
Oh, 4.
So it's 300. Add the 0 back in.
Oh.
3,000. So, there's my inequality. But is that answering the question?
No.
It says, how many orchid species are there in Malaysia? You would say? More than 3,000. Maybe put it back to words, right? Because it was stated to you in words up here. Guys, I just realized something.
What?
I'm going to go back on a slide here. We probably should have stated this how? What notation? Set notation. So, set notation says, bracket M, the line, such that
M is greater than or equal to
negative 15. Okay? I'll skip doing part B. You guys should be able to do that real quick, but I just wanted to refresh on that we definitely want to put things into set notation. Get used to the idea, okay? Okay, next one, guys. After we do multiplication, we got to talk about division. Technically, they are the same thing, right? I can multiply by a fraction instead. But we do have division properties of inequalities. And the nice thing about it is they also work. Which means, going back to our A is greater than B stuff, if I divide both sides by the same number, it's still the same. So think of your hourly pay if you guys have a job. Somebody makes more than somebody else per hour. If I cut your hourly pay in half each, the person who is making more an hour still makes more an hour because he has more to start with, right? So this still works. And you can see a couple examples off to the side on showing how that does work. So I'm assuming most of us will get that. The problem that we're going to still have, though, is part B, or the second one. And again, this is that whole idea that what if the number C, or that value, was negative? Now you're dividing by a negative number, which does what to your inequality? Says, when dividing by a negative number, the direction of the inequality sign is reversed or flipped again. So, if C is a negative number and A is still greater than B, when I divide both sides by C, now A divided by C is less than B divided by C. So, when you divide by a negative number, you flip the inequality symbol. And our examples are there to follow if you need them. So 6 is greater than 2.4, but if I divide both sides by negative 6, negative 1 is definitely less than negative 0.4. So the sign flips. Okay? And this again works for greater than or equal to and less than or equal to symbols. So we go back to the bottom lines there. It's important to take away from this one. If you blank by a negative number, you need to blank the inequality symbol. Same exact line as before, but what are the words? Yeah, we divide and still reverse. Or if you want, you still can say flip. So we're going to change the direction of that inequality symbol. Therefore, now we can say anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to reverse the inequality symbol. Inequality symbol. It's as easy as that. Under normal circumstances, you're good to go. You don't need to divide, don't need to change anything if everything's positive. But as soon as we put a negative in there, you have to flip, no matter what you're doing, multiplying or dividing. Okay, keeping things simple here. 8p is less than 58. How do I go about solving this? And I'll ask for volunteers. And when we're done with that one, go right away to negative 42 divided by, or is greater than, sorry. Negative 42 is greater than 6r, solve for r. There you go. Oh, that's what you're doing.
So first I'm going to divide 8, so, yeah. Well, and then on both sides, so, yeah. So, P
Got better handwriting than you do on this thing. Ooh. You're done. Straight heat from Bill.
Yeah.
So 7.25, p is less than 7.25. Can you finish it off for us?
Yeah, I got it.
Wouldn't it be less than or equal to?
No.
No. There's no equal to symbol up there. You can't.
Oh, what? No, I did that wrong.
Just add it from
I put the wrong sign. How do I do that? Like erase it. Yeah. What? Oh, okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, wait, no.
Oh.
Right, guys. Do we need to flip the inequality symbol?
No,
No, because
it's not a negative.
it's not a negative. Thank you very much, Chuck.
Alright, first you want to divide by 6 on both sides. R is less than negative 42. And then do the squiggle thing. And then because the 42 is negative, do you switch the inequality, so it's
Careful.
or
Just because a number is negative, does that mean you have to switch it? When's the only time you switch it? Or 2 times? When multiplying or dividing by a negative number. You only divided by a positive 6. You're good to go.
oh, okay.
Frederick, how did you do that?
He's still recording, guys.
Alright, and then is that it?
You just have to get
There
it
we go.
out.
Thank you very much. Your homework, guys, is the worksheet 5.2. Have a great day.